Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for showing up. I know I've been in the corporate environment a long time, so knowing that pizza and salad was part of the deal, so I totally get it. Been there, done that. So as you can tell, I am blind. And as you can see on the screen, VI, visually impaired. You're going to hear me using this acronym throughout my presentation. I promise you this as well, I'm going to keep it to 30 or less. My second request is all mobile devices. Been there, done that. Yeah, I'm visually impaired, and I've also been a lifelong technologist. I started back in the mid-90s when truly all you had to do was spell Y2K, and you were pretty much guaranteed an opportunity, right? So I started at US West, US West Wireless. Started out as a COBOL developer, actually. And early on in my career, I had to figure out very quickly how to leverage what I call tips, tricks, and technologies to my fullest advantage to overcome, if, else, and all those other kind of statements that are required to be a coder out there. And so I moved on to US West Wireless and then Quest Wireless. Tried I did a stab at level 3 for a contract gig. Moved on to Com Partners, a startup VoIP company. There I went and got Cisco certified, so to be a CCNA. Really, again, focusing my whole way through the certifications, through my career, always having to use in different tips, tricks, and technologies to overcome those very real visual obstacles. Just as as everybody knows in here, if you have a network topology, it's two-dimensional, right? How does that, those pretty little clouds that all the sighted people really like to look at, they mean nothing to me. Although there are very simple techniques, a simple piece of technology that I would use over my career, actually, that's $20. It's just a hard rubber mat, and you would bring it into your room and you'd ask your sighted friend, you'd say, hey Chris, can you take a 68-cent ballpoint pen and you perforate around the shapes now, because there's a little give to that hard rubber mat. And so it would allow me to go three-dimensional, right? And so now I can say, okay, here's my application, here's my database, if it's a system flow, whatever that is. It allows me to move at the speed of business. Because remember, technology, pencil used to be considered technology some time ago, right? So technology doesn't always have to be zeros and ones. Although with the zeros and ones technology, my iPhone, provides more, adaptive ability than technologies from even 5 years ago. It's amazing where the iDevices have gone. I'm not a technology snob where I say, oh, I've got to be all Droid or all Apple or whatever it is. I am an accessibility snob though, and there are some amazing technologies that allow me literally voice to text. I manage my calendar, I manage my contacts, I manage my emails, my texts. You have Link here within the building. There's an app to allow me to do IM. There's so much technology out there that's zeros and ones to help mitigate that, the very real visual obstacles. And so just to get the 800-pound gorilla out of the room, there are ways for us. And I know in your industry, Tom, I'm going to massacre his last name, Tom over there at Comcast, who's I think he's a vice president of accessibility. Again, same thing. How do you get to that point? Well, he's not going to get to that job just because Comcast feels bad for, let's hire him because he's blind. No, if you're not producing at a high level, you're not going to make it there. And there are technologies to allow people to overcome that. So that's a little bit about my background, who I am. One good thing about being VI for you as the audience is you're at a distinct advantage. If you guys decide to be super quiet and walk out, I won't know. So, although I ask for maximum audience participation. So at least one of you's got to draw the short straw and stay in here to help me out. So just let me know. Next slide, please, Tom. Tim. BIT, Blind Institute of Technology. This is my passion. As Chris said, I went all in. I literally put my entire 401k into making this a reality. I want to bridge the gap, the tremendous chasm between the VI community and the corporate environment. And we've created programs that help educate and train both the VI community and the corporate partners. And what I'm out there doing, talking to the executives, and I've been amazed, literally, just in our industry, again, I call myself a telecommunications nerd, although Avaya, who's got 16 patents for the VI community, 0 blind people on staff. It's amazing. Not even UAT. I mean, you would think they would have UAT for their patents. Cricket Communications, CenturyLink. Actually, what's amazing about CenturyLink is Girish Varma, CIO, runs a 4,000 person organization, and he also happens to be VI. So there's some amazing talent out there, not just Tom with Comcast. Liberty Media is a corporate partner of ours. Comcast is actually Bill Strahan, EVP of HR at Comcast, is flying VIT out to meet with him and Tom at the end of this month to move things forward. They really see a lot of value because my sales proposition is just this. I believe that we're the greatest untapped resource in America. Just the numbers alone dictate that there's some validity to that. Here in Colorado alone, just in Colorado, between working age, between 18 and 64, there are 45,000 of us. 45,000. So just by numbers alone, even if you tap into like 2% of us who have the same amount of education as our cited peers, I mean, there's some real talent pool opportunities out there for companies. So got some amazing play just within this, within our industry alone. Red Robin, though, and Denver Water CIO, Chris Dermody, is actually on our board of directors. So I'm very pleased to have, I've got 2 CEOs, a CIO, I've got a dynamic board of directors, and in just 8 months, we put together a great organization that's really moving. And we're already getting butts and seats. We're already getting the visually impaired community hired out there. So it's pretty amazing. So VIT really is just about that gap, is bridging that gap between the VI community and the corporate environment. Next slide, please, Tim. Should say 75%. Mm-hmm. Oh, good, you're still. 75%. That's a test. So 75%. I've seen statistics as high as 81% and as low as 70% unemployed within working age VI. And there are 0 statistics out there that show that we're any less educated. As a matter of fact, you're going to love to know this, that your tax dollars actually pay for VI people to get, I've got a plethora of multiple PhDs, multiple masters, multiple bachelor degree VI adults that are out there, and your tax dollars are paying for every single one of those degrees. And yet 0 job opportunities because it's scary, it's different. I get it, right? It's that, it's the unknown, right? How do you do that? And for me, what I'm out here doing is explaining that it's really not that scary. It's okay, and it's perfectly fine for you when you're in front of me to say, hey, did you see that? Or look over there. It's okay. I know I didn't want to go into the HR stuff, Karen, although it's perfectly fine. It's fine to say that, okay? I'm not going to be offended. Those are just sayings. That's just how it goes. It's perfectly okay. Treat me as I'm a person first and not a disabled person. That's just common respect that we should all give each other, right? So regardless of skin color or anything like that. So a third of the working VI community are at or below the poverty level. And it is perfectly legal for a federal contractor to pay somebody who is VI less than minimum wage. They're able to pay somebody who's VI $2 an hour to fold towels for X entity. So so these are the numbers that spur me on, that keep my passion. The reason why I went all in to make a difference. I'm all about SMART goals, right? It's got to be smart or specific, measurable, attainable, risky, and time-driven. I'm all about, is it attainable? I think 2% just in Colorado, that's attainable. That really is. That truly, truly is. Next slide, please. It says blink.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Blake, has anybody in here ever read this book, heard this book?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good. You didn't raise your hands. I like that. Another test. All right, good. So, an amazing book, Malcolm Gladwell, bestseller. Why I bring this up is because, to me, this book absolutely quantifies. My theory is that 75% unemployment, it's not overt discrimination. It truly isn't. I do not believe that Chris or Karen Phil would not hire me here at Cable Labs because I'm VI. That's not going to happen. There's legislation out there that prevents that overt, like, oh no, the smoking gun. We're not hiring you because you're blind. That doesn't happen. Although Blink brings up some amazing concepts that were brand new to me and just opened my eyes, literally, to kind of that statistic of 75%. He talks about the very first concept in there is thin slicing. Thin slicing is that amazing power that our subconscious or unconscious has, where we take all of our experiences, all of our books, all of our movies, all of our life, and in a blink of an eye, you're able to make a decision on something. He actually depicts several experts within their field, an art curator who's able to take a look at an art piece, and within a millisecond, just a blink of an eye, he's able to tell that it's a forge. Or a tennis coach, before the ball ever hits the racket, he's able to say it's gonna double fault. And I'm hoping that's right, because I don't know tennis. Is that right? So within that blink of an eye, they're able to determine. And that's the subconscious being able to figure something out just in that nanosecond that takes place. That's all taking place at the unconscious level. Well, that's all the power of, that's the pro. Well, kind of the ugliness that also kind of takes place. Tim, next slide. Is the next concept, is IAT, so implicit association test. And there's a tool that's out there online, implicit.harvard.edu. And it's a test that allows you to go out there and really test the reaction to that thin slicing, those split moments, those blink moments. And what they'll do, the most famous of these IATs is the race IAT, okay? And of all those who have, 80% of all those who have ever taken the race IAT test, the vast majority have pro-white associations. And what this proves is that we have two levels of attitude. The IAT measures our second level of attitude, which is our racial attitude on an unconscious level. And truly what that means is, so as you're taking the test, you'll have a category, and you'll say on the left-hand side, you'll say it'll be African American, on the right-hand side, it'll be European American. And then words will pop up, and what they measure is how long it takes you to associate a positive word to an African American versus a negative word to an African American. And again, and it's just blink, blink, blink. And Malcolm Gladwell, when he took the test, and he's half black, his mom was Jamaican, he came out with pro-white associations. And so how this directly correlates is, again, I go back to 75% unemployment within a certain demographic of disabled. So when I come into the interview and I've got my cane, immediately people are thinking, and we've had very candid conversations just with Karen, oh my gosh, how does that work? And so even though there's not the immediate, like, oh, we're not gonna hire you because of that, here's what happens. And for all of you who do have kids in the room, and I assume there's a few of you, your child brings home and they've got 2 A's, 2 B's, and a C. What's the grade that we focus on? It's the C, right? So I walk into the room, what grade is this? It's immediate. It's immediate. You automatically think it's a liability, that it's something less than. And I'm here to tell you that I've got A's, I've got B's that I bring to the table. And those are the things that I want to talk to employers about every single day. And which really leads me into, not yet, Tim, kind of the second portion of this, because it's all about, okay, great. So we're able to quantify that there's this attitude that's kind of this prevailing attitude that's going on out there in the work environment. So what's next? Now what? How can you do that? Well, in the book Blink, he literally says, the very first step is, we all know this, it's awareness. You have to be aware of kind of like, okay, what's triggering that? So when you go to interview the next time, keep this in the back of your mind. Is don't, and I use this all the time. Put your blinders on. Put your blinders on. I feel like I'm at such an advantage. I have assets that are completely different than your assets, although they are assets nevertheless. I bring that A to the table every single day. And one of my A's is the fact that I do not look at somebody like they are, culturally different, ethnically different. I don't look at that. You're just a blur to me. So I wait for content immediately. And if you think about how applicable and how apropos that is for the work environment, it's absolutely amazing, especially for disciplines like project management, where you should just be able to just focus in on what's happening. Okay, if you're a business analyst, you need to be listening to your stakeholders and just zone in and not focus on like, oh my gosh, it's that person again, or are they really wearing that, or whatever, your eye device is out and you're focused on all these other visual distractions. Guess what? We do not, as a community, we do not have those visual distractions. It's an asset. It really is in a corporate environment. I've talked to, executives all over the country. My latest one, Sierra Wireless in Vancouver, British Columbia, Jason Cohenauer, who is the CEO up there. When I talked to him about the value proposition of bringing in somebody who is visually impaired into your organization, and I talked to him about, again, our active listening skills. Although, again, don't ask my wife about that. I'm still a guy. I'm still a guy. So, although in the corporate environment, I always tell her, like, I am rock solid. So and the other kind of funny thing to that is so we have this, so I am now the listening savant. So, market it how you can. Although when my wife heard that, wow, she immediately wanted, she's like, well, I'm going to get you a t-shirt that says, listening savant, shh, don't tell your wife. So, I think it's applicable because, hey, when the game's on, the game is on. That's all I can say. So, so I'm talking to him about the assets that I believe that we just have innately, right? We have to focus on that medium. That's our main medium. So it would be a little bit more heightened, right? I'm not saying our hearing is better. I'm saying we just focus on that. So he said, well, gosh, I tell my inside sales folks all the time, your main objective is to listen to our potential customers. That is your job. And so think about, whether it's inside sales, whether it's customer service, whether it's project management, there are a lot of disciplines where those skills are the top 2 or 3 when you ask anybody, what are the top 2 assets that you want for that particular discipline? I mean, those are right up there. Right, and then of course being organized and detailed, all of those. Well, guess what? As a VI person, I have to be. I mean, like when I walk to the light rail, I know where that pesky puddle is. And I'm only going to step into it one time, and then I'm going to be a little ticked off, and so I'll avoid that next time. We absorb data like that, and that's what we do. Well, that's an asset in an organization. When I used to code, I didn't visually know where all my modules were. I mean, I memorized the names. So I mean, when I'm doing my find statements, I'm finding it. I mean, way before the VI, because my sighted peers, they're like, "Hey, hold on, where you at? Where you at?" And so I'm using the shortcuts. I'm learning all those things. I memorize all those things to allow me to produce as fast, if not faster, than my sighted peers to overcome those very real visual obstacles. Right. So, which leads me. So next slide, Tim.
Can I ask a quick question then?
Please.
So, I guess you're obviously not quite as susceptible to racial, appearances, but I'm guessing that you're still pretty much just as susceptible to, accents and things like that. So do you get, do you get kind of preconceived notions when somebody opens their mouth and they speak with an English accent or something, and does that kind of give you that same type of feedback?
Love the question. I love the question. And so a disadvantage to when I start to receive content is when I hear a Southern accent, I immediately think hillbilly. Okay, so I'm not saying that we're not prone to it. And actually, it brings up another the book Blink. Actually, he goes into this. What I thought was fascinating within the book too. So malpractice for doctors. They've gone out there and they've analyzed which doctors actually have the most malpractice suits against them. And you would think because it's faulty care, and it's absolutely not. It's faulty care and something else. And they've actually tape recorded these physicians, and they can prove that the doctors who get sued, malpractice, get sued, it's because of the tone of their voice on how they talk to their patients. I mean, and it's just amazing. So if you think about that, and they were able to content filter, so they take everything out and they just focus on tone, and they're able just to determine, not even the words, just based on how they were talking to their patients, they were able to determine who was going to get sued and who wasn't, like at 85%. So the tone of your voice. And if you think about that, so leadership in the room, anybody with teams, focus on that too, the tone of your voice. Anytime you're going to convey something, it means a lot. And we're always wondering, what's it going to take to allow my team to be more productive? Sometimes maybe it's just your tone of voice and how you're talking to them. So I am very susceptible to, and it's interesting. So I'm thinking the first time I have a talk, in the South, I'm going to have to change that to people from Boston or something. I'll have to, I don't want to be body surfed out of the room, so I'll have to figure that one out. So yes, great question. Are there any other questions to this point?
Lots, but I'll wait to the end.
Okay, great. Okay, so next slide, I believe, is now what?
Yes.
So BIT. So the programs that I'm focused on to really kind of overcome some of these perceptions, some of these, the thin slices that take place, and to focus on, to me, the assets that we have as a BI community. So we are teaming up with the Mile High chapter of the PMI, Project Management Institute. We're taking their certifications and we're completely making them accessible. Not the loose term of like, yeah, we're accessible, like Cisco told me when I went to take their CCNA. And what they meant by accessible is I was allowed to take somebody who could see in to read me all those pretty pictures. So that was considered accessible to Cisco at that time. Now, what we want to do is, so if there are those pretty pictures out there, how do we bring those to life tactically? Because we want, VI people to know project management inside and out, and we want them to be able to understand some of those very visual concepts like Gantt charts, critical path, that sort of thing. So we're making those completely tactile, and we're having our kickoff program in January. So we're really excited about that. And we've got amazing companies like Avaya and WebRoots that are absolutely supportive, bringing in students right away from those programs. So it's really, really exciting. Our next program is staffing. So I've had a lot of companies who have just said, Red Robin recently, like saying, hey, we've got 29% attrition. We're the best in class in the restaurant industry is 17%. Well, guess what? Blind people know how to cook too. And there are a lot of technologies out there that actually, and they're less than $200. They'll actually determine whether or not, the two things you got to worry about with cooking. It's time and temperature, right? Well, guess what? There's devices out there that cost less than $200 to allow us to do that. So we're working with, Red Robin and a lot of other organizations to start getting butts in seats right away. So staffing is the next one. Team building, and this is the one that actually I'm really excited about. Again, the asset that I believe I have is when I'm talking with a team, regardless of the team, whether I'm leading a project manager, if I'm lead engineer, whatever that is, again, my ability to not focus on all the visual distractions, I believe is a true asset. And so I wanted to say, okay, well, to kind of perpetuate my message, to get it out there even more, this team building concept, where we're actually going to take groups of people, we're going to put you in blindfolds, don't freak out, it's only for a few minutes, and we're going to allow you to focus on your team from a completely sightless point of view. So we have these sightless principles where we're going to allow you to focus on producing. You're actually going to have to produce using other senses, and most importantly, your active listening and communication skills. And you'd be amazed at what that does when you don't have that automatic, like, oh my gosh, it's Chris Lammers at the table. He's going to be treated differently because he's COO. It happens all the time. So whether somebody's COO, whether somebody's hair color looks this way, whether somebody's, are you really wearing those shoes today? Those things happen all the time. Well, I believe I'm at a true advantage because I don't focus on that. So to me, I want to create an environment where we're actually helping you. That way, when you come back to your team, maybe you can take one of these techniques back to your team, and you're really focused on the content that's coming out, and just seeing if that helps you produce a little bit better. Our fourth one is technology. There are a lot of companies out there that do adaptive technology, accessible technology, that sort of thing. There's nobody out there that's doing it other than like Tom and Garish that are focused on the corporate environment. So all the big vendors that are out there with screen reader technologies and all this sort of thing, they have amazing footprints within the educational space. They have zero footprints within the corporate space. Why is that? 75% unemployment, no wonder. So, and then again, the majority of the people who are working are in government jobs because the government has a quota. Of course, right now they don't have anything. Yeah, I guess it's timely, right? So they have a quota to bring in a certain amount of disabled people. And another thing that fuels my passion, I get a little passionate about this, is a VI person does not even have to interview for a job with a company, with the government, state or federal. We don't even have to interview. If we meet the qualifications, we just have the job. That is, really? I mean, so, really? I mean, it's just saying that we don't have the interview skills. I mean, it's like the bar is set so low for us. So again, just one of the other things that just fuels me. So our final program, obviously, is donations. We are a nonprofit. and it's grown. We've got revenues. My whole goal is, and we're making revenue on all 4 of these programs right now. Although for us to expand, you know, we're a 501c3. I did that specifically. We're a startup. We will be self-sustained. You know, not just based on my 401k. We are making revenues, and we're actually eligible because we're solving for some pretty major issues that are at the federal level. So, like the Department of Labor actually has grant monies that we're eligible for. Department of Education, because again, we want to create educational opportunities that are truly accessible, that apply directly to the labor force. So we're actually eligible for a lot of grant dollars. Those are like mini cycles out there. So although we want to capture those opportunities, right, as an organization. So for me to be able to go national, I want to go in 15 cities, have the Project Management Institute actually already said that the national team is going to take this on. Because, well, believe it or not, there are blind people everywhere. So we believe that there are 15 cities out there where there's a lot of, you know, statistically, you know, mass transit, usually good mass transit draws the VI community to those cities. So there are 15 cities that we have kind of earmarked to go out there and expand out to. So let's see here. Next, let's see here. Where was my slides? Yeah, I think one more slide, Tim. Okay, this should be Stephen Covey.
No.
There you go.
Now it is.
Okay, all right, Stephen Covey. I think this is a very applicable quote. I mean, do you guys know who Stephen Covey is? Okay, so it fits into my theme of really the message I'm attempting to get out there. I mean, how many of us actually listen to somebody, you know, for the content that's coming out when we're solving for something, versus you, as soon as they're 4 words into it and you're already like, oh, I got a reply. You know, I've got it. I've got the reply. And I just think, again, it comes back to our team building, what we're really aiming to do. And I just thought that this was applicable. That's all I got about this. So, I believe it's time for my. I've got some video clips now. So we're about done, and I'm really excited about these movie clips because they were very applicable for me, kind of showcasing. The kind of the team building concepts, you know, they were very apropos for that. They're also entertaining, and they also have some of the main themes that I'm talking about. So within the VI community. So the very first movie clip that we have is actually from a movie 1982. It's based on a true story of a musician who is blind, and he has a CNI dude. Like I've got CNI dudes, and so when I go out and I run with a CNI partner, right? So. And I thought this clip was very apropos.
That's right. Man.
And I believe the next slide should say obstacles. Are we on the obstacles? Yeah. Avoiding obstacles. So communication, I think this is key. So and this is kind of a little rib on my executives in the room. So how many times have your teams, you know, been charging along, you know, just moving straight ahead, and they kind of hit that obstacle blindly, and then afterwards you say bench. You know, it's this is a way, you know, again, communication should always be something that we are looking to be proactive about, so we can avoid the obstacles, and so I think it's very apropos for the corporate environment. Do what you can, you know, even if your team's running along, even if it's 5 minutes of notice. Be as proactive as you can to help people avoid those obstacles so we're not hitting them blindly. So my next clip is actually, it doesn't have anything to do with blind people, although it's very appropriate because there have been many times, you know, based on, you know, ethnicity, based on accents, that sort of thing. This happens all the time. So this is a clip from Rush Hour 2.
Do you understand the words that are coming out from my mouth? Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
So sometimes, again, I believe it's very appropriate to put your blinders on. Okay? Put your blinders on and just, you know, we hear, you know, first of all, the sighted people, I know you see somebody, and how many times have you seen this? They're from another country. What are you looking for? Just put your blinders on. Focus, you know, again, focus on them being a person first, not like just because they're from another planet. And so I think it's very applicable. It happens. I mean, IT, as we know, technology is just a cultural melting pot. And so I know this happens on a pretty routine basis. So my next clip is a movie that I really enjoy, A Scent of a Woman. Al Pacino, he's a wounded warrior, and he happens to have lost his sight, although he still has the, to take another movie line, the need for speed, and he wants to drive a car. Next slide.
Charlie, you can't turn the car.
Where's the turn, Charlie? 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, right oblique, right face. Come on, talk to me.
It's left, I guess.
Left, I knew it. Okay, now?
No, not now, not now.
Now!
Charlie, please, quit.
Charlie, I'm gonna do it anyway, all right? Whether you say so or not, here we
Okay,
go.
okay. Wait. Wait,
Here I go. Here I go.
wait. Now!
Hoo-ah! So I think so. My next slide should say urgent and clear. So your communication should be with a sense of urgency and clarity to the extent that you're able to get a blind guy able to turn safely in a sports car. There are so many statistics out there. Absolutely driving fast. So if you think about just how much, and there are so many statistics out there that actually quantify that. Gartner has the statistic of 80% of all projects don't end up on time or on budget. I mean, and that's industry wide, right? I mean, there are statistics out there that show that it costs companies millions of dollars every single day due to poor communication. And I'm here to say that, if it be very urgent and very clear about what you're aiming to get out there, I think it helps organizations tremendously. My next clip is from another one of my favorite movies, Richard Pryor. There are no F-bombs in this. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. And Richard Pryor is playing a blind man, and Gene Wilder is playing a totally deaf man. And he is masterful at reading lips, Gene Wilder is. Although, of course, to read lips, you got to be focused on somebody. And so this is a clip that I think is very, very apropos.
I have a lot of love for you. Thank you. So tell me, how's it feel to be handicapped? I always wanted to ask you that.
I'm not handicapped. I have you.
Awesome, bold. And so this is where it leads me into. So I knowing that I'm in front of a bunch of sighted people, I know how you like your visual props. And so I do have a visual prop to put on today, and this really kind of sets it home. So hopefully you're able to read this. Sorry about that. So I say be bold because in a corporate environment, as we all know, sometimes we are afraid to get a little egg on our face. We're sometimes afraid to look a little silly. So another great opportunity, just put your blinders on. Don't worry about what other people are seeing, okay? And just be bold. Just be willing to be audacious and have a little fun. And then finally, my last clip, same movie, Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Again, it's actually there was cussing, actually not by Richard Pryor, and we bleeped it out though. So, and this scene to me just I had to put it in here because it was funny. Because there are so many times in my corporate career where I've gone out of a room, whether it's an all hands, whether it's a team meeting, whatever, and I came out going, "Did that just happen?" So next clip, please.
All right, Mr. Lyons, I need a nice full face shot first, and we'll get our side shots later. You ready?
We're here because you owed that sleazeball $2,800.
Face forward, please.
I happen to think that the Knicks were going to beat Boston, and they came damn close.
Will you tell your friend to face the front, please?
Face is front.
Why'd you even go to him? What do you mean a boogie?
Face front, please.
He was the only one that gave me credit. Face front.
Will you tell him to hold still, please?
What?
Hold still.
Where are you going?
Holding still.
looking at you, looking at me.
But face the camera.
That's perfect. Tell him not to move. Why is he doing this to me? I just want him to face the camera.
He's not facing the camera?
No!
What's to me? But face the camera.
That's better. Hold it. Charlie, come here.
Why would she say ship, 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 ship?
Get him out of here. I want him out now.
And that really is just, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced coming out of a management meeting before, and just experienced anything like that before. I thought it was very apropos again for the corporate environment, and it obviously makes me chuckle. So I appreciate that. And then really in closing, I like to talk about a gentleman that's here locally. His name is Eric Weimeyer, and he's one of less than 400 people on the planet that have summited all 7 highest peaks on all 7 continents. And he also happens to be totally blind. And his first team that summited Mount Everest, 19 out of the 21 person team actually summited. At that time it was a world record. As we know, this close to Boulder, how many folks have never even made it to the summit one time, let alone being on a team where so many people have actually summited. I use this because it's happened to me more than one time in my career where somebody's come up. You know, when I worked at level 3, it took me 90 minutes, 3 buses to get up to work. It was my responsibility. The onus was on me to do that. So, and I would still come in. I would come in with a rock solid attitude. I was making sure that my game face was on all the time. And so I say this with, do you think maybe 1, 2, maybe all other 18 people on that record-breaking team might have been a little motivated or a little inspired by seeing this blind guy kick some ass? So I think it's very apropos for the corporate environment. So, you know, I'm always asking, you know, leadership, you know, if you have teams that are mediocre and you're looking for a way to give them a jolt, if you're looking for a team that's good and want to go to great, maybe bring a diverse set of talent into your organization and just see if that might motivate some people. So that's all I've got today. So I appreciate your time. I think I'm right at third. Did I do good on time, guys?
You did.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you guys very much. Are there any questions?
I have an observation.
Please.
By the way, don't think I'm a hillbilly. I can handle it.
I thought I said Boston.
It's my observation after going around the human computer interface conference this summer that the people who develop the technologies aren't thinking out of the box because they're told to think out of the box. Many of the people who have developed some of these technologies live outside the box the rest of us live in. And so in some cases, the developed access technologies are far superior to those that are developed by engineers who have all of their senses at their disposal. My question for you is, since we work in what is primarily a visual medium, what sort of things should we be focusing on in order to make access into the products given by our industry to your community?
Great question. Thank you very much. And your name?
Terry Shaw.
Thank you, Terry. So it's a great question. Was everybody able to hear Terry's question? So he's saying, so as engineers, as industry, you know, professionals within technology, what is it that we need to do to actually allow this to be accessible to the VI community? And believe it or not, so less than 5% of all websites on the planet are considered accessible, and yet really the only true the thing that you have to do, the item within your website to make it accessible, is just add tags, add descriptors. So if there's a back button, all you got to do is be able to put on there on your tag is back button. If there's a picture on there, so when you come onto my website, blindinstituteoftechnology.org. There's a picture on there of the bridge. Well, guess I don't just say picture a bridge. I cater to my BI community, and I say metaphor for leverage or bridging the gap between the BI community and corporate environment. That's all it takes to make a UI completely accessible to the unseen community. It's really not that hard as a coder. So this is, again, as old as I am, so putting in COBOL flower boxes, right? I would use even more of another technique that I would use. I would describe the heck out of that. I would put dates in there. I would do everything I could to allow me to go to that piece of code, because at 3 in the morning, if you're called up and it is your code, you want to be able to find it right away, right? So it's just simple techniques like that to allow, technology to become accessible. It really isn't, it's not going out, it's also grasping, especially applications that are made accessible on the iDevices or on Android. You're just tapping into the resources, whether it's the GPS or whatever, modules are already available on the device itself. And then you just got to think, okay, well, so if I were to tap into the audio portion of this, what would I want to hear, right? So as I'm using the touchscreen technology, and Steve Jobs, his very first iPhone, he made sure that it was absolutely accessible. So wherever I touch on the screen, it reads it all to me. And then it's just gotten better with Siri, where now you can do so much more with the voice commands. So it's really not as difficult as you might think. And I know that Tom with Comcast is actually focused on some of that, because the text to voice is already out there at every device now, right? So all you're doing is you're tapping into what's innate on the system itself. Does that help?
Yes, there's a second part to the question if you have time.
Please.
The other part is something I observed is in some cases the disabled community has developed interfaces because they don't live in the box that are far, far more efficient for doing certain sorts of tasks than people who use all their traditional senses use. An example of that that comes to mind immediately was an eye tracker used as a remote control, developed by somebody who was mobility impaired. Do you have any specific opportunities where you think that the sighted community could benefit more from some specialized technologies developing to address visual impairment?
It's an amazing question, because here's an idea for me. So when I got to go Christmas shopping for my wife, a mall, an airport, they're to the square inch, they're completely mapped out. Although it irritates me to no end that when I go into the mall with my wife and I got to say, so if I were to get you a robe, whereabouts would Victoria's Secrets be? Versus actually being able to surprise her, right? Being able to, and obviously I could find somebody else, although they're big malls. Think about what the technology, because GPS is already there. If you think about what it would take for me to be completely independent inside of a mall, or when I travel, I would travel all over with US West and all sorts of other companies on my own to map out that airport. And the internal GPS is a little bit different, although the Wi-Fi technology is amazing. Even the boxes themselves, to be able to map out all the stores. And so accessibility doesn't even have to look like, okay, how do you make money on there? Because so you got to be able to sell that concept, and even to put the $1 million, so the Cherry Creek Mall is completely accessible to me by the square inch. How do you make money on that? So as I'm walking in front of that Victoria's Secrets, if I'm downloading that app for $2.99, and all of a sudden now I walk in front of their store, all of a sudden now they're going to push their advertisements to me. How many stores would love to be able to push their advertisements to consumers as they're walking by? Right, so you can still make money and make it accessible at the same time. There are lots of abilities out there, and all disabled people are looking for is that little bit of independence. And so technology, so it's like there are a lot of opportunities, I believe, especially with the mobile devices, how we can become more independent. The Google car. It's going to be just a matter of time when I'm going to be shaving in my car on the way to work. It's just a matter of time. There are a lot of technologies out there that can completely help us with our independence. So as you're, especially in the telecommunications industry, think about, just again, to make it accessible, we're talking about just some descriptors, or, the ability for me to hear what's on the screen. It's simple stuff, it really is. Did that answer that too?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
In terms of the technology, if it were a clean slate, what would the internet look like to you? How should let's say the internet, to pick on something, have developed for the VI community? If there was no VI community, but VI was everywhere, how would it be different than now, other than the obvious screen piece?
It's simple. It's just making sure that, again, there's descriptors. So whatever you visually see on the screen, I'm able to navigate based on every item on the screen, every link on the screen, every button on that screen, every menu has me the ability. So just if you think about that from just a simple standpoint, just close your eyes and just think, okay, so how would I want to be able to get from, to the next screen, right? I mean, it's really very simple. It really is just building it out, thinking, okay, and it is a little aggravating that, web developers don't necessarily keep the same model of, top, down, left, right. Okay, that is a little irritating. Although, that would be nice. Although I'm not even thinking utopia here. I'm just thinking, just put descriptors out there. I mean, less than 5%. I mean, eBay had to be sued by the National Federation of the Blind just to allow because they were considered a vocational opportunity. And the VI were saying, well, you're not even accessible. How could you be a vocational opportunity? So, I mean, why does it have to come to a lawsuit when you just got to think of how easy it takes? I met with the CIO at Red Robin yesterday for lunch, Chris Laping, an amazing guy, and I told him, and I was busting his chops a little bit, I'm like, you've got a pretty accessible, online presence. I was like, except for when I go to, a picture, and it's supposed to be a picture of some kind of a juicy burger or something like that, all it tells me is JPG 69467. I'm like, that doesn't sound tasty at all. I just told him, I'm like, is that really, I was like, and it spreads like wildfire in the VI community. I mean, when we know that there are accessible websites, we flock to them. Think about, so from the food industry standpoint, I mean, again, it's not like we're all destitute. There are a lot of us that actually make money, and some of us actually like eating hamburgers, So, it's just kind of thinking, like Terry was saying, just outside that box a little bit about what that would look like from a web presence. Does that help?
No, maybe it wasn't clear my question.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. So thinking about it, if the internet were developed in a site, in a community, in a world that was all VI, there was no vision. So you wouldn't think about screens at that point, right? Because the screen, what you're dealing with right now, right, is something that's built for a sighted community, and it's kind of retrofitting it for different able people. But if it weren't developed that way, so really I would think, well, the first thing is you don't need a screen. But then how would you interact? Would it be a box or tactile, or what would make sense?
It's so, believe it or not, so if you go to it, there's a store actually down in Littleton, downtown Littleton, called Beyond Sight. And when they build machines for totally blind people, it's literally there is no monitor.
Right.
There's literally no monitor, and there's actually very easy. So it'll read everything. So the screen reader technology, it'll read everything on the screen. Unfortunately, a lot of times what's on the screen isn't descriptive, right? It'll just say button, or it might not even say that. It's kind of almost a bleep. It'll read all literally all the way across the screen though, and they are amazing. Excuse me. The other piece of it is they have these braille displays, these electronic braille displays, where everything that is on the screen will come up in braille. So to your point, yes, that's exactly what's being developed. And again, so to allow either for you to feel it or for you to hear it, it's again making it completely accessible, super simple, because the technology's already there.
Is there a time when braille makes more sense rather than hearing?
Yes.
It's really two different ways of getting at the information.
And that's a great question, and so there are many blind people so the word accessibility, again, it's so overly used and really underprovided. They say just because it's in a digital format, they consider that accessible. Although again, I submit all those cloud pictures and all that kind of stuff that even if it's in digital, it's a JPEG, right? And yeah, there's all these octets and everything else that's on that it's meaningless to me. So versus where if I'm able to get that information in braille, right? So tactically it comes to life for me. So yeah, there's absolutely benefits to having stuff in both mediums. Did I get it this
Yeah,
time?
you got it.
Okay, good. All right.
I have more, but I don't want to dominate, so.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just very interested in you identified one resource here, Beyond Sight, in Littleton, but what are other good resources for technology, assistive technology?
You know, so they literally, there is one blindness store actually in, is it 2 states or 3 states? So we are talking, so here's the thing, other than your state, your tax dollars, there's not, the blindness community doesn't have a lot of money to be going out there and buying new devices.
Right.
So part of my mission is, again, I mean, how can we get more people working so we can, you know, enjoy the own benefits without using other people's tax dollars to buy that equipment. So literally within a 3-state region, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico, there's a single blindness store. Now there are other, like, you know, traveling salespeople that will offer their own brands of technology that you can find. It's an interesting niche. They're all bidding for the big state contracts because, again, that's where the dollars come from. You know, and for me, it's so. Again, I'm not even focused on the educational or that kind of niche. You know, we're focused on, okay, what does it take for a VI person to come into a corporate environment to be successful? Is it that Braille key display? Okay, there's $1,000. I mean, we're not talking huge line item, you know, dollars for any of these stuff. You know, my iDevice, I mean, $300 for my 32 gig phone, and it's got more adaptive technology than most devices out there. I mean, just to be productive, right? So that hard rubber mat, what does it take for a blind person to come in and be successful within a corporate environment? So I don't think I'm answering your exact question, although there's not a lot of, you know, not a lot of people out there that are doing, the Apple Store is actually really excited about this endeavor because, again, there's nobody out there. Apple's got a lot of play within the educational space. They have 0 success stories within the corporate space because, again, 75% unemployment. So again, that's one of the things that, to me, it's like, how do we get more visibility? How do we get more people out there that are thinking outside the box, helping create more of these solutions?
Good.
Any other questions?
Question.
Sure.
What's your perspective on the state of descriptive video? I think you mentioned it, but like how prolific is it in your view, and is it adequate technology is being used?
From what, like what Tom is doing there at Comcast?
Or just video shows in general? Are they just, you know, the descriptive portion, is it sufficient or insufficient?
I'm going to have to punt. I actually don't know if I've ever heard. So I watch a single show every week, and it's called Monday Night Football. Maybe because I know when it's going to come on, and then I watch so little TV. I do mostly books, audio books. So it's not that I'm opposed to television. I would love to actually. I would love to actually know more about it. I actually do not know.
There's actually a FC. This is my name's Don. There's an actual FCC requirement now that cable providers provide an audio track that describes the action on the screen in addition to the regular audio track.
And I had heard that. That was just like last year, the year before, that Obama signed that. Is that right?
That's right. We're in the middle of the implementation, and there are tricks to where in the stream you can actually carry it and all that. But yeah, Tom's been a leader on that.
So I know of it. I just haven't been privy to what it actually sounds like. I didn't actually know it was live. I thought it was because as soon as legislation goes in, there's a lag time before it's actually mainstream. So I was thinking that we were in that lag time stuff. So apparently it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not live yet.
It's not live. Okay. Actually,
I call it the middle of implementation. It's actually a lag. That's right.
I mean, a WAG with an observable television from visually impaired is called radio, with a specific pointing back to the radio plays that used to be available. If you listen to many sorts of the programs we have, concerts, etc., the video is just peripheral to anything. It's the audio track that matters. With more of that type of program, something that has a better script, descriptive script like we used to have in the radio place. sort of a question.
Well, and I wasn't sure, Terry, you were responding to.
I wasn't responding to
Okay.
Ron's question, I was just thinking about the way shows are even scripted.
Sure. And to me, so my concept of this was the, what do they call that, caption for the hearing impaired?
Closed caption.
Yeah, the closed caption. I thought that kind of this expansion was just going to be an audio kind of for that. Did I not understand the technology correctly? So I thought that's what was going to happen with video. Was more of kind of an expansion of that, where they're actually describing kind of the scene, right? And all
Yes,
That's
right.
Okay, good.
So it's really a voiceover. So in addition to the dialogue that's taking place among the actors,
Okay.
right, or whoever's in the program, there's also an audio stream that has the description of what the action is.
Right. Exactly. So instead of my wife, when I'm asking my wife, what's going on?
Yeah.
She's like, shh, no, what's going on? So I don't have to do that anymore. None of that. So that'd be awesome. So yeah, I would. Yeah, are you guys beta, or how does that work then? Because Cable Labs, I mean, you implement with the FCC and then you roll it out to the MSOs, right? Am I understanding?
We're working with the MSOs right now, just so they need to figure out where in the video screen they can actually carry that track, and because there's a lot of competing uses.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Ancillary tracks, and so we get involved in that, and so looking kind of a standard of how cable complies with that requirement.
Okay.
And even an alternative display format might be worthwhile, like instead of having it available as an audio track, having it available for transmission to the printed screen, where you could follow the visual description with your fingers while listening to the audio.
Wow.
Interesting.
Something to talk to Tom about when you get there is the follow-on to this descriptive video service, which is geared towards television. Is kind of the follow-on is descriptive video for internet information, websites, and so forth. So it's again a descriptive audio that would show up when you're just searching websites.
Especially for all the mediums that aren't real conducive to the screen reader technologies, like Flash and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I think I didn't realize, because again, since the internet is really it's kind of international, right? So how much of all this can America kind of when so much of the development that's going on the internet that's going on in Turkey or Pakistan or wherever so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out just from a from a world e-commerce kind of standpoint, right? So I'd be fascinated to hear just kind of. Do you guys have anything in beta at least, or do you? And who are you beta testing with? I mean, so I assume you guys have at least 6 or 8 blind people here. I mean, is that so?
You haven't done your homework on us.
Clark's not here. Clark Stevens has some of that up and running in the lab. I think. Check with maybe your next visit.
We've got a follow-up opportunity.
Absolutely, no. I think it's great, and to me, this is one of those opportunities, especially being so close to CU Boulder, where they have an amazing accessible technology lab. Graduate students in there that are just phenomenal. Bring them in there, so an actual technology opportunity where they can come in here and just see kind of what's going on, and maybe provide that out of the box kind of thinking again. So a technologist helping kind of the cause out. Great way to leverage this university just down the road. So. Any other questions? Did I get yours, Terry, though? I feel like I left that one on the table.
I'm fine.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? I truly do appreciate this
Mike,
opportunity.
thank you very much.